Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Commander Showcase. It is the final episode before we hit Halloween, which means we are going to be going with probably the strongest deck in the Halloween specials here, including an infinite that is about 3 cards in size. That being Amzu Swarm's Hunger. It is a green, black, and 3 colorless for a 3/3 with flying, menace, and the abilities of other insects you control have menace. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you may create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token and put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among those cards. The downside is we can only do this once each turn. Thankfully, this isn't much of a downside, as she's not not part of the infinite that I'm talking about, but she does facilitate a lot of really good shenanigans when it comes to discarding creatures to immediately bring them back to your hand, or just straight to the battlefield. As you can see, we're talking a lot about the creatures that can revive themselves. The goal of this deck is to kind of be, like, again, usually lower bracket 2. So something you could pick up and play at any power level, or at any skill level, I should say, and have a good time. Speaking of the creatures that revive themselves, here is our roster. Most of these cards are going to be, okay, well, it dies, and if X happens, you can return it to the battlefield, or pay this cost and bring it right back. Examples of this are, like, the normal ones: Reassembling Skeleton, Gravecrawler. But then we also have a few other things like Golem Patient Plotter, which we can pay a black and sacrifice creature to return Golem from our graveyard to our hand. We can also get some extra card draw on a Clattering Augur, where we can pay 4 mana to return it from our graveyard to our hand. Persistent Specimen is pretty much a slightly worse version of Reassembling Skeleton, as it costs 3 mana to return it to the battlefield, but its starting cost is 1 less than Reassembling Skeleton. Cult Conscript can be returned to the battlefield from our graveyard if a non-skeleton creature card, or creature, died under our control this turn. Tenacious Dead, we can just pay 2 mana and return it to the battlefield after it dies. Onto the Dead Marshes, we can pay 3 to return it to the battlefield, only if we control a legendary creature, and when it enters, it allows us to scry 1. It's going to allow us to kind of manipulate the top of our deck so we can try to get some better cards out, or just try to get, if we need more lands, we can try to pitch something to the bottom that we don't need right now, or vice versa. We have Tenacious Underdog, which can be cast from our graveyard using its Blitz ability, which Blitz is you pay the cost, which in Tenacious Underdog's case, it's 2 black and 2 colorless, as well as 2 life. It gains haste, and when this creature dies, draw a card. And at the beginning of the next end step, we sacrifice it. This is all pretty much the same thing. Forsaken Miner is probably the only one that's a little bit different here. As whenever we commit a crime, which is targeting opponents, anything they control, and our cards in their graveyard, we can pay 1, or pay a black, and return it to the battlefield. Now, I actually don't think there's really much of targeting. There might be other effects that we can do to allow us to get it out, but I might be wrong on that one. But in testing it worked as a good way to bring it out for cheap, get a swing in, and bring it back with another effect. Mosswood Tread Knight's probably one of my favorite ones out of this, though. It is a green and a colorless for a 3/2 with trample, with the ability whenever Mosswood Tread Knight dies, you may cast it from your graveyard as an adventure till the end of your next turn. And its adventure is a black and 1, where it'll make us draw a card and lose a life. So we're going to get extra card draw out of it. Plus, we're going to be able to make it leave our graveyard after it dies, and then bring it back to repeat the process. Speaking of getting things out of our graveyard, though, Poxwalkers is probably the last one, probably one of the more important ones here. It is a 3-mana 3/1 with Death Touch and Curse of the Walking Pox, which is whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you return Poxwalkers from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Tenacious Underdog would be one to trigger this ability. Gravecrawler, Mosswood Dread Knight, and I think there's one more, and I'm blanking on it, and I'm not seeing it here, but we can cast things. We also have stuff like Flashback that we're going to be bringing in towards the end. That's going to allow us to cast things from our graveyard and trigger Poxwalkers. Hey everybody, I just wanted to quickly do like a little jump in here. I just wanted to let you guys make sure everyone knew that I have a Discord channel. It's linked in the description below, but also to go check out the video that I uploaded on Tuesday of the Mortal Kombat Lost Media. I highly recommend looking it out or checking it out. It'll be a little bit of it right here in the top, but it is also because I am looking for a piece of Lost Media here, and I'm really hoping for some help on it. The E3 builds, Mortal Kombat Deception, Deadly Alliance, and Armageddon, I've been somewhat on the hunt for the past about year now, just periodically, but over the past couple weeks, I've really started to go through it. I've been talking to people like Dayrax and stuff, as well as emailing a bunch of other people about the information on it. So if anyone can help me out with that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Go check out the Discord, DM me in there, and let's see if we can find this. Now, back on with the video. Here's where our infinites our infinite is gonna come into play here. We also have other bonuses for Resurrection. Skeleton Crew is another one. We're 6 mana, we can return to the battlefield tapped, like you could with some of these other creatures up here. But he gives other creatures that we control that are skeletons or pirates +1/+1, and whenever one or more creature cards leave our graveyard, I'll create a 2/2 black skeleton. This is going to be a potential infinite here, comboing it with Thran Vigil, as well as Evolution Witness. And I'll get into it once we kind of go through the rest of the cards here, but I guess I can go through Evolution Witness real quick. It is a 3 mana for a 2/1. It is Adapt 2, which we can pay a green and a colorless to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it if it has no counters on it already. And whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Evolution Witness, we return target permanent card from our graveyard to our hand. You could see where Thran Vigil kind of comes into play here. But our other ones are mostly just make a creature token. Tormod makes tap 2/2 black zombies. Desecrated Tomb makes 1/1 black bats with flying. Chalk Outline makes white and blue detective creature tokens. And Insidious Roots make plant tokens. And then Willowgeist just becomes larger. And now here's where I'll actually go into the infinite here. There we go. Alright, so this is really zoomed in. But we can go here. So we'll have Scourged Familiar, Thran Vigil, and Evolution Witness. All we need to do is get something into our graveyard from our hand. We could take like Sir Conrad, for example. Whenever another creature dies or a creature is put in a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's going to be completely irrelevant. Because of this, we need any way to get something back from the graveyard. Actually, we could use Skeleton Crew for this. So, Skeleton Crew, we pay the 6 mana, we return him to the battlefield. This will trigger Thran Vigil to put a +1/+1 counter onto our creature control. We put that counter on Evolution Witness. That's going to cause its ability to trigger, to which then with Scourge Familiar, we can discard Sir Conrad to add us a black mana. This will allow us to I'm trying to get it to zoom out a little bit. I'll just zoom it out this way. So we'll have these guys out here. That will allow us to then return Sir Conrad to our hand, which will then trigger its own ability. We could pitch Sir Conrad again, return him back to our hand, repeat the process as Evolution Witness gets bigger and bigger and bigger every single time. And all of these other effects infinite with it as well. Sir Conrad, if we start pitching something like Skeleton Crew over and over and returning it to our hand, we're then pinging each opponent for 1 damage each time, allowing us to burn everyone to death. We have Desecrated Tomb or Insidious Roots or Chalk Outline. These will be giving us infinite creature tokens. Insidious Root will also be making the plant tokens infinitely large as well. Evolution Witness will also be infinitely large. Willowgeist is also going to become infinitely large as we are having cards leave our graveyard. Chalk Outline makes us investigate as well as create our tokens. So we will get our clue token, which clue tokens we could pay 2 and sacrifice a draw card. Which means if we have infinite black mana, can work as colorless, we have infinite clue tokens, we have infinite mana, that means that we're having infinite card draw, allowing us to draw our entire deck, get all of the value we need, use any green mana with something like Rishkar. Like, we take something like Rishkar here. Okay, well, we have these unlimited amount of plant tokens. We're able to bring them, whatever we have already, we can go and we can start pumping them up for not only value, but also for mana, as Rishkar makes our creatures with counters on them tap for green. We can even like stop the loop, get a counter on like Scourge Familiar, repeat the loop, stuff like that, just to be able to kind of go through that. We have Amzu, who will be making us insects that will have counters on them for Rishkar. And there's just a lot of value you can get from this infinite. And it only starts with 3 cards. And you can kind of twist it in any way you want. While testing, I literally had every single one of these cards except for Insidious Roots on the battlefield. So I had Willowgeist out, Desecrated Tomb, Chalk Outline, Skeleton Crew. So I was just pumping in tokens, and I'm like, wait, hold on, this is going infinite. So infinite was kind of accidental, but still really interesting. Now let's get back to the deck. I guess I could also say Iridescent Hornbeetle is going to allow us to, even if we get board wiped right after the fact, we'll still have all these tokens from Iridescent Hornbeetle, which makes a green insect creature token for each +1/+1 counter we put on creatures under our control this turn, which could even rival like big landfall decks with Scoot Swarm, with how many Scoot Swarms they make. We'd just be making so many Iridescent Hornbeetle tokens, or not Iridescent Hornbeetle, but insect creature tokens from it. It's a surprisingly effective infinite that you wouldn't really expect, because I mean, like, Thran Vigil doesn't look all that intimidating until you slap down an Evolution Witness and then just win the game. I was talking about how we need to fill our graveyard. Here are some ways to do it. I went with the aforementioned Scourge Familiar. Discard a card to add a black mana to our mana pool. We also have a couple of card draw effects like Village Rites, which make us sacrifice a creature. Plumb the Forbidden, which we can sack as many creatures as we want. And then we copy the spell for each creature we sacrificed, allowing us to draw a bunch of cards. Sure, we lose a lot of life, but to me, it's worth it. Viscera Seer allows us to scry. Again, it was the whole thing of the elf up here, Haunted the Dead Marshes, allowing us to manipulate the top of our library to ensure that we're getting exactly what we want. Then we also have Smuggler's Copter as our other draw effect in this section here, allowing us to draw a card and discard a card. Fog Witch also allows us to discard a card, but we have to tap it, pay a black, in which then we'll get 3 black mana as opposed to the 1 we'll get from Scourge Familiar, but we can only do it once per turn. Skull Prophet can tap for black or green, as well as put the top 2 cards of our library into the graveyard. Buried Alive will put 3 creature cards from our library into our graveyard, which is a very effective way to set up our infinite, because we can easily just go and toss Skeleton Crew or like Sir Conrad into our graveyard alongside something that's easy to bring back to our graveyard, such as Reassembling Skeleton, as well as then Evolution Witness to just kind of start the loop if we have Thran Vigil on the battlefield. We also have Ayara, who can sacrifice a black creature to make a draw card. Most of our tokens are going to be black, which will allow us to sack our tokens, or we can sack stuff like Reassembling Skeleton and stuff like that to kind of recycle our board repeatedly and allow us to get our additional triggers off. White of the Reliquary is a card that I never really needed to use because I kept running into lands for some reason, considering the fact I have 35 lands and like 3 of them are MDFCs in the deck. You could tap them, sacrifice a creature, search a library for any land. It could be a forest, it could be a swamp, it could be Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, it could be Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, it could be Gaia's Cradle, anything you want. Put on the battlefield, tap, and shuffle. So, as you can see, like there's a lot of ways to discard cards that you could have went with. These were just a lot of the effective ones that I found. I wanted to make sure that we could get a lot of card draw, so I had stuff like Ayara, as well as Plumb the Forbidden and Village Rites, allowing us to kind of recycle our hand without needing to hope that we are, needing to discard down to hand size to get that, to get the ball rolling like that. We can also, going into that though, these are going to be not only like recursion, but also card draw. Not a whole lot of card draw, actually. I feel like I took out a lot of card draw here. We do have another tutor here, Insatiable Avarice. You can pay in black and then pay either 2 to make us search our library for card, put it on top, or 2 black to make target player draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. This is going to allow us to get out that Thran, the Thran Vigil, if that's what we need for the infinite. That's going to allow us to get out our other value engines like Phyrexian Arena, which allows us to draw a card at our upkeep. Oversold Cemetery to be able to immediately start bringing things back to our hand. Evolution Witness, like I said earlier, to start the infinite. Timeless Witness and Eternal Witness to allow us to put a card from our graveyard to our hand when they enter, and stuff like that. And the only other card of note, Phyrexian Reclamation, is you could pay 1 and a black, 2 life to bring a creature card from our graveyard to our hand. And Return of the Wild Speaker, which can either make us draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures that we control, or give non-human creatures we control +3/+3 until end of turn. Since you can see how often infinites are going, I did want to add a decent amount of support. Maskwood Nexus was an obvious one for me personally, because I found it very effective since we were making so many tokens to make sure that they're all insects, even though most of them aren't. This is also going to allow our stuff like Willowgeist, Evolution Witness, and stuff to get bonuses from Amzu, because she gives insects that we control menace. I also wanted to make sure that our creatures were just safe in general. Something like Revitling Repast puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature and gives them indestructible until end of turn. It also can be a Golgari land that just tapped. There's also Defend the Rider, which gives a permanent we control hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Or we can make a 1/1 colorless pilot. With this token, saddles mounts and cruise vehicles as though its power were 2 or greater. Or were 2 greater. Mortal's Resolve gives a creature +1/+1 and indestructible. Withstand Death gives them indestructible as well. Honest Rutstein is also going to be a nice recursion piece, as well as making our creature spells a little bit cheaper to cast. Inspiring Call is going to play a similar role as Return of the Wild Speaker, as we draw on a card for each creature that we control with a +1/+1 counter on it, as well as giving them indestructible until end of turn. Our last form of protection here is Wrap and Vigor. Some of the more popular board wipes like Wrath of God and Damnation prevent them from being regenerated when they get destroyed. But other things like Austere's Command or Vanquish the Horde, Mass Calcify, Damn, a few others, they don't have those creatures can't be regenerated. Stat line, or not stat line, but ability line or effect line, allowing us to pay 2 mana and save our entire board. Especially since we're going infinite, so that allows us to save our board in the event of a counterspell, or not in the effect of counterspell, a board wipe. We just gotta hope that we don't get a counterspell thrown at us. I was talking about Flashback earlier. None of these cards are particularly good. Some of them are recursion pieces, like Diregraph Rebirth and Dread Return, as well as Dryad's Revival. But most are just kind of mediocre spells. Diregraph Rebirth costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. And then when we cast it, return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. This also applies to the flashback cost, because I was looking at it up. I was like, you know what, at least with that 5 creatures, we have a lot of sack outlets and stuff like that. If we're able to sack 5 creatures to be able to bring one back for 2 mana, it felt like a no-brainer to me. Plus, it's a 5 mana spell, allowing Amzu to make us a 6/6 insect when we cast it from the graveyard. Dread Return is a 4 mana recursion spell, allows us to bring a creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield. And for flashback, we can sack 3 creatures to recast it. And again, since it's going to be leaving our graveyard to go to exile, we're then making a 5/5 insect with Amzu. The other ones are all just kind of mediocre. Trader's Clutch, the only reason why it's in here, it's going to allow one of our big tokens to kind of get through, or one of our infinitely large creatures like Evolution Witness, Willow's Geist, one of our plants, because it'll give them +1/+0. It'll make them turn into a black creature, and gives them Shadow until end of turn. Which Shadow is, it can only be blocked, and it can only block creatures with Shadow. It also has a flashback cost of 2, allowing us to get around that hefty 5 mana cost, but still giving us the effect of a 6 mana insect. Deadly Allure gives a creature death touch until end of turn, and making them forced to be blocked this turn if able. This is going to allow us to force one of our creatures that we want to die, that can self-resurrect, to be killed. Something like the elf that works with very well, because it's a 1/1. We can kill it. and it will affect, I'm blanking on the name of the card, but it works with Haunt of the Dead Marshes, which we can make it get killed, and then Cult Conscript, we can return to the battlefield that turn, since a non-skeleton creature died under our control this turn, since Haunt of the Dead Marshes is a nightmare elf. So, and then Coffin Purge is just simply exiling a card from a graveyard. This is if we just can't remove a card from our graveyard that we want to get a token out of. We could just exile a card from our graveyard, flash back for another 1 mana, or we can always exile something out of an opponent's graveyard. So that is all for the deck, though. This is probably one of the longest ones in a while. As you can see, there's a pretty hefty bit of mana in the deck. Incubation Druid is another good one here. When it comes to something like Rishkar, as we can add 1 mana of any type that a land I control would produce. If this creature has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. This also works with Rand Vigil, allowing us to get even more mana out. There is also Fanatic of Ronas, which is one that I actually recommend probably taking out. It does have Eternalize, which makes a 4/4 copy of it after it's when it's in the graveyard, which exiles it, so it'll be leaving the graveyard. But we're only getting a 2 +1/+1 counter insect on the field, so it'd be a 3-power insect. But Fanatic Aronas is just very effective at getting us a lot of mana, especially in green, where we actually don't have a whole lot of green in the deck. We only have a handful of forests in the deck compared to the swamps, and a lot more ways to get a lot of black mana, such as with Scourge Familiar. So it's effective, but you could run other things instead. Llanowar Tribe or something like that could work as well. So that is all for this episode of the Commander Showcase with Amzu. Next month we're going to be again shifting up the format a little bit, so look forward to that, as well as dropping in the comment below a little bit of like a suggestion for a commander. I already have a couple in mind and I'm working on, so let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll be sure to start working on them very soon. Thank you all, though, so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.